moving with us as well. So, all right, my name is Sarah. I'm going to be working through nutrition with you today. And the intention of this is to provide information for you. As I wrote in my email to some of you that pre-registered, there are lots of ways to do the same thing. And I'm going to present a couple different options, all of which are scientifically based for you to live your best life, reaching the goals that you have set for yourself. But if you vehemently disagree with what I'm saying, that's okay. But I want just to present information to you, and then you make the choice for yourself of how you want to live your life and fuel your body. Okay? Nutrition to me is about fueling your body and nourishing your body. And that means quantity, how much you're eating, and quality, what are you eating. These things go hand in hand, but the main idea, the main theme of a nutrition program or nutrition practice is sustainability and consistency. We never want to be setting ourselves up to be in a state of deprivation or to be in a state where we are hating our life. We are not able to consistently hit our macros, or we're not able to consistently live the life we want while we're making good choices. So, what are macros? Macros are macronutrients, okay? So we have macronutrients, which are proteins, carbs, fats, fibers. We have micronutrients, which are all of our vitamins, our minerals, etc. So we're going to talk about macros because they are the building blocks of what we're going to be eating. So we have proteins, carbs, and fats. Proteins are the building blocks of our muscle. Honestly, they're the most important macro, and it aids in recovery and feeling full. So whenever you're thinking about your meals, protein should be your number one. What protein am I eating? Protein counts as 4 kilocalories per gram. So every gram of protein every gram of protein, amount that you're eating, so for example, you're eating 20 grams of chicken, how that calorie is calculated is 4 times 20. That's how much energy it takes for your body to use that protein, okay? Carbs, 4 kilocalories per gram. That's quick energy, it fills you up, it's gas for the tank, okay? You need carbs. Carbs are your friend. You need an appropriate amount of them. If you're feeling lethargic or you're in your workout and you're like, I don't have a go button, I don't have any gas in the tank, you might be missing out on fuel. You might be out of gas, literally. Again, these are 4 kilocalories per gram. And then we get to fats. Fats are amazing. Fats are essential. They are a crucial nutrient for your body. And this keeps you full, but fats cost more. They are 9 kilocalories per gram. So if you're looking at rice, amazing, and you're looking at, let's say oil, okay, the same caloric amount is going to look a lot bigger in rice than it is in oil because oil is a straight fat and it is twice the kilocalories per gram. Okay, so when we're looking at fats, we need to, of course, love them, eat them, because fat is in everything, but we need to be aware of what the fat costs and how much fat we're eating, okay? So, what about your macros, right? Macros are fun, but how does this apply to me? How do I do this? So looking at your sheet, we are going to look at our baseline calories. So some of you have done the in-body machine, which gives you your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, literally what it takes to keep you alive. If you are eating at or below your basal metabolic rate, you are doing damage to your metabolism, to your hormones, etc. Okay? There's no reason we should ever be eating that little, ever. Okay? Unless we are truly starving. With that, we want to be looking at maintenance. What does it take to actually live right now and keep this body weight? What does it take to actually do that? So those are our maintenance calories to stay the same weight. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out our activity level. Okay, some people look at their activity level and overestimate. Cool. That's going to set your maintenance calories pretty high. Some people underestimate, and that means that they maybe don't understand how intense their workout is. If you have a Whoop or if you have a Garmin, this helpful because it kind of tells you like what you burn or what it takes to keep your body active at what you're doing. Okay? So for example, I know Christine has a Whoop, I know Steven has a Whoop. He can look at actually like what his body used and average that out and then maybe see if it fits with what he thought his activity level was. So taking a look at your paper, we're going to look at probably, I would say for most of us, the average level of activity, which means 1 hour of exercise 4 to 5 times a week and normal daily activity. That means like, to me, that means like 5,000 to 8,000 steps a day, okay? So when we're doing that and calculating that, women, we usually go with the lower number, 14, men, depending on how active you are, and then also what you are doing with yourself. If you're doing extra sessions, etc., you might go with a higher number. But most of us are going to be in this 14 multiplier range, okay? So once we collect that multiplier, whatever you believe it to be, go ahead and flip over. So go ahead and flip over, and then we're going to see what we do with that multiplier, okay? So with the multiplier, we're going to multiply that times our body weight, okay? So on the very back page, if you flip all the way over, sorry guys, it has a little worksheet, okay? So go ahead and write down the multiplier that you have chosen. The multiplier that you've chosen. So the very back is like the worksheet, and so you can write down the multiplier that you've chosen, and then you can also write down your body weight if you have an idea of what your body weight is. You can go ahead and do that math if you'd like, because that's going to be your maintenance calories. So if you want it to stay the same right now, this is what you would need to eat every day. Okay? If you want to gain, of course, you're going to have to add more food. If you want to lose, you're going to have to take a deficit. And there are a couple different ways to do the deficit. Okay? So looking back up here, we have maintenance minus deficit equals our target calories. And after we've done that math, we're going to figure out our deficit or our surplus. So how we define deficit or surplus, we're going to focus on deficit. Most people that I find, I'd say like 98%, are wanting some sort of body fat loss rather than gaining mass. So if you're wanting to gain mass, please let me know. I will help you calculate this, but basically you would go the opposite. But we have a small deficit where we decrease maintenance calories by 10 to 15%. The small deficit is nice because you don't feel deprived, okay? You can easily make these changes and you can make sure that no matter what, you are able to feel satisfied, okay? Small deficit is nice, but it doesn't give you as much room for error, okay? So some people, when we're starting with macros, they either are really nervous because they don't want to feel deprived and they like doing what they're doing right now. And some people want instant results. Well, I hate to break it to you, but as we know, instant results are not lasting results. So what we want to do is we usually try to have a small, moderate deficit because the moderate deficit gives you a little bit of room for error. And it also can help progress you along to where you get that feedback of things are working. My work is paying off, okay? So I personally like the 15% deficit. That's where I usually like to start people because it gives you a little room for error, but you can still see things happening, okay? And I want to take a little time out because if you've never tracked your food before, if you are unaware of what you're eating, and then I give you these numbers and you go home and you're like, great, this is amazing, and you eat all the food and you have a perfect day, and the scale goes up 5 pounds. The bottom line is that you're going to have to ease yourself into eating this much food so your body can feel the energy and can actually regulate with what is happening so that you don't see a huge spike because you ate 400 grams of sweet potatoes. Okay? I've done it before, it's amazing. But we have to make certain that no matter what, you think long term, not today. But how do I get here and how do I get my body set up to make these incremental changes, which is the consistency piece and the sustainability piece, okay? So, I'm going to teach the class with a 15% deficit. If you would like to do something else, please write that down on your worksheet. So take your maintenance calories and then take your deficit. So if we're looking at our sheet down here, we have our baseline calories and then our starting calories after our deficit. So those starting calories are what we're going to work on, okay? So that would be our target calories. From the target calories, we're going to break it down into proteins, fats, and carbs in that order, okay? Proteins are the most important. Carbs are the, no offense, least important, but they are important. So if we're talking about proteins, we are going to take our body weight times the protein multiplier. And I go, wait. I had an activity multiplier, I got a protein multiplier. What is this? Basically, we have to decide, and this is in your document, we have to decide what kind of requirements we need for our activities. And it is different from activity to activity. Reason being is muscle breakdown and then fuel for your muscles, okay? Protein helps your muscles rebuild. That's why people say drink a protein shake after you work out. Why? Because your muscles have been broken down and now we need to rebuild them. So it aids in recovery and it also aids in making your muscles stronger faster. So endurance athletes usually run a 0.7 to 1.2 grams of pound per body weight. So if you're more of an endurance athlete, you need, in theory, less protein than a power athlete, okay? This also depends on, do you want to gain mass? Do you want to lose mass? Okay, if we want to gain mass, we need to put as much in our body as possible. But most of us are not in that camp today. So I would recommend for most of us a 0.7 to a 0.9 in the body, of the grams per body weight multiplier. So if you're in your worksheet, you're going to choose between 0.7 and 0.9. Now, if you have never tracked your protein before, you might start at 0.7 because as we know from our 1% Better Challenge, it can be extremely difficult to go from eating 50 grams of protein to 100 grams of protein overnight, and that's not recommended. Ease yourself into it. So if you need to start at 0.7 and then ease your way up to a 0.8, you can, but just be aware you're going to have to rework these numbers, okay? So we have our protein, and that is our that's our grams that we need to aim for. For most of us, this is going to be at least 100 grams, okay? The intention with that is that we are making the consistency piece, and we're making it attainable by easing our way into it, okay? After we take our body weight, our protein multiplier, we're going to take our starting calories times our fat multiplier, and that is going to give us our fat calories. Now, as I said earlier, fat is amazing. Fat keeps you full. Fat is tasty. Fat is what makes food enjoyable, okay? Cutting fat super low is not only like tasteless, but also can put you in such a low cut that you then cannot lose anymore, okay? That's when reverse dieting comes into effect, and that's when also like changing your macros is helpful, because you can get so low in fat that your body's processes don't work well anymore. It specifically affects women with menstruation, with our skin, etc. So if you're like, oh, my skin is like so dry, I can't keep moisturizing, like if nothing's happening, your fat may be off. And we have to have fat. It is amazing, it's delicious. So for the fat multiplier, we recommend no less than 20% of your calories come from fat. Yes?
Starting calories.
Yep.
I missed how to calculate that.
So the starting calories should have been maintenance and then your deficit.
So the maintenance calories divided by the deficit?
What I would do is, so that's your maintenance calories, and what was your deficit, 15?
I was going to do 15.
Yep, so do 21 times 0.85, because that's the inverse of your deficit, right?
Yeah.
Yep, and then that'll give you starting calories.
Okay.
Okay? Perfect, good question. So now we have, and then what you would do there, Lucy, is you multiply like that times 0.8, which gets you protein.
Okay.
Yep. So fat is our essential nutrient, so we recommend a minimum, I would say, of 25% for women. Men, you can go a little lower if you want to. I don't know why you would. But it also is about personal preference, okay? So what kind of food do you like to eat? If you like to eat fat, you cook with oil. Give yourself more fat, but that has to come with a balance of carbs, okay? So if you want to use, like for me, my fat is 40% of my intake because that's how I like to eat. That's what's sustainable to me. That helps me be consistent. So if I'm using that multiplier, I would take my maintenance calorie or my target calories times 0.4, right? Because I've chosen 40%. And that gives me how much fat I need to be eating. Okay, so let's take a hot moment and I want you to think about the foods you eat and I'm going to list some fats. Okay? And I want you to think, what do I eat on a daily basis? Okay? Eggs, proteins and fats. Bacon, proteins and fats. Peanut butter, proteins, carbs and fats and fiber. Oil, fat. Avocado, carbs, fats and fiber. Oats, carbs and a tiny little bit of fat. Almond milk, fat and carbs. Coconut milk, fat and carbs. Let's see, what else has delicious fat? Anybody got a fat call out? Anybody got a fat that they love to eat? Cheese, proteins and fats.
Meat.
Meat.
Like fatty meat.
Fatty meat, 85-15 ground beef.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's got proteins and fats. Beautiful. Okay. So, as we're thinking about our fats, it is, as we're thinking about our fats, I want you to choose somewhere between 0.2 to 0.4, let's say, of your fats. Okay? What you're going to do on your worksheet is you're going to write down the total macros of this amount. So what we have is we have the calories that we've done. So the starting calories times fat multiplier is the fat calories, and now we divide it by 9. 9 is the caloric calories per gram. Once we've done that, that gives us the total for our intake. Okay? I'm going to come around and double check that y'all are good on this and that you have your grams. So 14 times, what's your dividing? 211. So do 14 times 211. Is 29.50. And then what's your deficit? You chose 15. So times 0.85 is 2,500. Okay, and now you're going to do which one? Okay. Okay. Now
I don't even know
take
what's
25 times. Did you? How much do you want to do for fat?
6.
You're going to do 7. No. For how much fat do you want to do? Let's do 25. 0.25.
6.
Do 2,500 times 0.25 equals 625 divided by 9. So let's do 70 grams of fat. Okay, that's where we are. Okay, so how much was, do 70 times, do that times 9 again. So that was 630. All right, so this one was, how much do 147 times 4? All right, because we're going to need this. All right, guys, let me know if you are still having trouble, and we're going to come around. All right, so, yep. So you had, so, times 0.808, or 0.8. Okay. Yep, and then what was that? 120 times.
Actually, you know what I just got?
Okay.
I don't know.
6.
What was your best? Yeah, this looks about right. What I would do is I would try to go that. So multiply 154 times 4 to get okay, hello. And then times 62 times 9. Yeah, and that's okay. And then we're going to use that. We're going to add those together to figure out our leftover calories. All right, guys. So, is anyone else having trouble? Yep, we're down here, and now we're just. So we did body weight times 14. So we don't use that. Body weight times protein multiplier is okay.
What's that?
I don't know.
That's correct.
Yeah. So you use body weight times point.
So where are these calories? So right here. This one.
No, yeah, my date. Yeah.
25 after my
So
25 divided by sorry, 25 times
which gives us
no less than 20%. More fat or more carbs.
Actually, more fat. Well, no, more carbs.
You're trying to figure out how many calories are.
Yeah, so if you say this, we'll do
Write down
times
calories and protein.
let's say 2. That's 20%. That's how many calories are coming from
And that's
fat.
going to get us
Divided by 9 calories per gram.
So
Is equal to 56.6 cents.
Oh, that's grams. Oh, that's okay. That's conversion.
Yes.
Calories.
So
Oh,
that would
okay.
be 20% or 57 grams.
Got it.
Is everybody else good?
That should be times.
That could be helpful.
You want to check mine?
Yeah.
Sorry, times 0.2. So 179.4. Okay.
Okay.
So my body weight was
Yeah.
3.14.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so 40.
You multiply your weight by 28, that's that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, guys. Anybody else having trouble? Yes, ma'am.
25%, so 1999 times 25.
Like I was once that's an 18%. Well, see, it's an old two different. It is an average. I have like a real.
Yeah, you can write
It
that
is a
down.
lot, but
then
your
you say
ideal
five.
body
That's how many
weight
calories
is
per
not
day.
what your body might be right now.
Calories per
What you
gram.
may have to do is you might have to think
Sorry.
about using a
That's correct.
lower target
Yep.
for now. Because it also depends on how much working out you're currently doing. Like, does your body need that much protein? Probably not. So what I would probably do is I would use maybe like 0.7, and where I would just think maybe like I would need honestly for like 130.
Calories from protein. That's correct.
All right, guys, and I would just like to say I did not create this calculator device. This is put out by the company that I work for, and if I were to make it, I would make it differently. So that's the caveat. All right, so 166, 59, and now we're gonna go to this step.
And I've done.
Yeah, so the remainder is 920 divided by 4.
Yep.
So that would be.
All right, put your hand on your head if you have a protein number and a fat number for your targets.
That's why we're gonna add.
It's okay. We're about to work on the carbs.
Oh,
Okay, we're about to work on the carbs. So with the carbs, what we have to do is we have to figure out now of our target calories what's already used, right? We have the protein calories and we have the fat calories. We need to subtract that from the target calories. So how do we get our protein and our, like we have our macros. What does that mean? Well, that isn't calories, okay? So if you're looking here and you have targets, but you don't have calories, we need to multiply it by caloric calories, like what it costs to eat that, right? So I think most of you have this, but if you don't and you're confused, just put your hand on your head and I'm gonna come to number one. So take starting calories, which is whatever we said maintenance calories up here, okay? So take our starting calories after deficit, subtract the like 600 calories for your protein or whatever it was, subtract subtract the like 600 calories or whatever it was from your fat, and now you have leftover calories for carbs, whatever's left over, okay? So we're going to divide that by 4, and that's going to give us our carb number, okay? I'm going to come around and double check with you. Yep, looks good. I'm just going to make sure it looks in the ballpark. Yes, sir. Thank you, Michaela.
I have a question for you.
Yeah. Yes, we want more fat. This is what, that's calories, right? And then by 4.
Leave.
That's it. Right, if you wanted to allocate more.
Yes.
So guys, the great thing that Christine pointed out, she said, I don't really like that carb number, like I'm not comfortable with that. So she's gonna go back up and reallocate calories in other places. And that's okay. You can do that because she said, I want more protein. I gotta eat more protein. That's okay. She's gonna make it work for what she needs for her sustainability and for her consistency, right? So this is a working document, okay? And you can actually do it kind of however you'd like. And I'll show you something that I created because whenever you're making a lot of macros, it gets kind of annoying to have to do this all the time. But not annoying, I don't like it, but annoying in general. So I created a document, like a Google Sheet, that I personally do. I like made macro math, and it's really cute. But if you want this, I can help you with this, but it basically calculates it for yourself. Yes, sir.
This is obviously an experimental process that everybody
Yes.
needs to do. How long do you recommend sticking with something before we change and try something else?
That's a great question. You really need, for my recommendation, to commit at least 10 days.
Wow.
At least 10 days to a set of numbers for you to actually let your body feel what's happening. Now, that's not 10 days of trying, that's 10 days of success. Okay, so it might take 14 days. And that may be like, try, oh, I haven't figured it out, now I'm getting it, right? That's the consistency piece that we're looking for. So whenever we're talking about macros and consistency, we want to see plus or minus 5 grams of protein, plus or minus 5 grams of carbs, and plus or minus 3 grams of fat. That's what consistency means. And so if you are not hitting that consistency piece, yeah, you're actually not reaching the success, the consistency to give your body to be able to assimilate to what you're doing, okay? Some people say it takes like 14 days to make a habit or something along those lines. But whenever you're working with food and routines and habits, it needs at least 10 successful days.
And what metric should we be paying most attention to see if it works, or is that goal dependent?
It is goal dependent. Some people want to see weight loss on the scale. That's what a lot of people find as their feedback, right? Other people need to take photographs of themselves and need to see body changes. Other people want on the in-body to be able to see changes in terms of like skeletal muscle mass and body fat percentage. And it really is goal dependent, but I would say the best way that I can tell you to track your progress is weigh yourself every day. It doesn't mean that's who you are. It is literal data. It is feedback on like what your body is doing and what you're doing for your body. And then take photos of yourself tomorrow morning in a bikini or in your underwear or whatever you feel comfortable, tight pants or tight tops or whatever, so that you can see your body changing over time. You don't need to take pictures every day, but I would say maybe like once a week, and try to see, same day a week, and try to see how your body's changing. Do front, side, back, and maybe like an angle pose if you know how to do that. But we really want to make certain that you're able to have baseline data and then able to see how your body's changing and feel how your body's changing in the gym. It also might be good to do like a benchmark benchmark workout and then revisit it in a month. But in 10 days, you may not see extreme changes in your body. Like you're not gonna have abs in 10 days. Or, sorry, visible abs in 10 days. But you should start feeling better, and you should be able to at least see some changes either in like your weight measurement or in your skin, your body, how you feel, etc. Good question.
Great answer, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. So now everyone should have a protein, a fat, and a carb number. Is that correct? If you don't, we can work through that. But like we said, like Sean saying, this is a working document. And so if you are giving it, you're trying to plan your macros, you're trying to figure out what you're gonna eat, and you're like, why am I out of fat? How do I hit these carbs? How do I do that? Maybe you need to move your calories around. Maybe we need to give yourself more fat, because like honestly, women, if you're eating less than 40 grams of fat, that's a struggle. That is a big struggle. Fat is not your enemy. It really is not. My whole world changed when I figured out that fat was not my enemy, and fat kept me feeling full, and fat helped my skin. Fat made me a more pleasant partner because I wasn't miserable. Like, I'm not kidding. Fat is your friend. Yes. And so if you find that you can't figure it out in tracking, how do I eat this lean? Don't eat that lean. Take some of your carbs, eat more fat. Speaking of tracking, if everyone has their numbers, tracking is step 1 in the nutrition process. Tracking with MyFitnessPal, it's free, it's pretty easy to use. Tracking leads to awareness. Okay? Awareness is the piece of, I know what I'm eating, right? Awareness leads to the routine of I can eat the same thing every day, or I know generally what I'm gonna eat today. And then that leads to what is called intuitive eating. And intuitive eating is, there are usually like 2 camps, and it shouldn't be like this, but people are either trackers or they're intuitive eaters. And what we want to do is we want to use tracking to build intuitive eating. So I know like, oh, my body's kind of hungry and I'm feeling sore. I probably need some protein. Okay? Oh, I'm feeling like I don't have any gas in the tank and I'm about to go do a workout. I need some carbs. What do I feel like having today? Okay? That's the intuitive eating piece, and being able to say, oh, I probably need some fat on that today to make a nice balanced plate. I haven't had many veggies. I need more fiber. And that is the goal with the intuitive eating. But in order to get there, we have to start with tracking. So what tracking means is that in a perfect world, you have a food scale. In a perfect world, you would use MyFitnessPal and you would scan the barcodes, and you would weigh out your portions. That's a perfect world, right? And you would also know your portion sizes. Okay? Most people overestimate portion sizes on everything but protein. Okay? Ironically, protein needs to be weighed raw. And this is something people miss. It's not a huge deal because I know we all need more protein and might be like struggling to get protein, but if you cook your ground beef and then you weigh it, you're like, oh, perfect, 4 ounces. You're actually like only really getting like 3.7 because it loses water and it loses weight. Okay, so whenever if you really want to go ham on this, whenever you weigh out your food and you have raw meat and you have a chicken breast, put it on, not on the scale, put it on a plate on the scale, and you're gonna get 6.8 ounces, okay? Log your 6.8 ounces, cook it, enjoy it, put it with some ranch dressing on a salad, enjoy it. But if you wanna do the experiment, after you're done cooking it, put it back on the scale and watch it lose 15-25% of its weight, right? Because it's gonna lose the water and it's gonna lose those things off of the weight. It still counts though. So if you really want to go full on this, weigh your meat raw on a plate or something, not just on the food scale. So portion sizes usually are skewed the other direction with fats. Fats are delicious, fats are tasty, fats are amazing. So if you're not tracking and you're not weighing your fats, like your nuts, like your avocado, like your oil, it is easy to overpour. It is easy to realize, to like grab some nuts and shove them in your mouth because they're amazing. But 28 grams of nuts is not much. It's literally like 7 nuts. So if we're like, oh yeah, I ate a serving of nuts, but you didn't weigh it, you have no idea how much it is, you're probably eating 3 times the amount you thought. Okay? So that's where our tracking and our portion sizes comes into play with the awareness piece. Okay? Now, I know that's a ton of information, and what I want to do is I want to take the next 10 minutes to give you ideas about how to hit these macros. What do I eat? What do I do now? Okay, with this information. I also want to take questions because I know that this is personal and it can be hard to think about making a big change overnight, and I don't want you to do that. I want you to focus on incrementally increasing whatever you're doing. So whether that's you start tracking, maybe you go to Target and you buy a food scale, okay? Maybe you buy a body scale and you decide I'm gonna weigh myself once a week. And then I'm gonna go next week, weigh myself twice a week. I'm not gonna weigh myself, I'm gonna take my pictures. Whatever you choose, incrementally move yourself there. Last thing I wanna mention before questions is fiber. Fiber is your friend. Fiber helps keep things moving through your body. If we are eating the right amount of fiber, that's 10 to 15 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories of your target. So most people in this room need to eat at least 20 grams of fiber. That's a really great baseline, 20 grams, okay? And if you're carb heavy, you probably need to aim a little bit more, okay? Fiber comes from vegetables, fiber comes from whole grains. Some of my favorite fibrous foods are broccoli, squash, oats, peanut butter has a lot of fiber, nuts in general, and avocado. But questions, comments, help whenever you're ready.
I would say that cooking sprays are your friend because you'll start noticing, like if you're going to roast vegetables and you put, some oil on it, which you think is oil, I think that's 15 grams of fat. That will blow through your fat quickly. I mean, I heard your fat numbers, so that's like almost 15% of your total fat for the day being used to cook with just oil. So,
Yep. And when you track that, usually what you do, it's like a 1 second spray. So you do have to track it, but you can find an oil tracker in MyFitnessPal, and what I use is like an avocado oil spray, and for every spray, it's like 1 gram of fat, rather than 15 for a tablespoon, right? And so you can get away with more. It does make it a little bit easier to manage if you're using a cooking spray, yes. It is not, it's kind of negligible, but you still need to be aware that like if you're using it like sunscreen, that it's gonna add up.
I've used like when you roast vegetables in a tablespoon of oil, that you log 50% of that oil. Is that accurate, or should I be logging the whole thing?
To me, I would overshoot it because if I'm like very committed to what I'm doing, I really don't want to be over. And being a little bit under is okay, but being over is not going to give you what you want. We log meat raw, and even though you might lose some of that 50% of that oil, I'm not certain that is like a standard amount, and I would not chance it like that. Other questions? These are great. There are all great questions.
Another thing to add, and I'm by no means an expert, as you can tell,
This is my fiance Mark.
but
He lives with me. He's been on a nutrition journey with us
yeah,
for
I
a
used to weigh
while.
like almost 300 pounds, so this stuff does work. But one other trick that I would recommend is when you are eating leftovers, for me, the hardest thing was like, I don't know what the exact number is. And sometimes that's gonna like play tricks on me, like, I don't know how much fat is in there. Was there 5 grams of fat? Was there 7? And it's just best to just guesstimate as best as you can. And as you grow through your journey, you'll learn how to do that a lot easier. But for me, that was such an obstacle because I kept not wanting to eat leftovers because I didn't know how much rice was on there because it's cooked now as opposed to being dry and stuff like that. So, for example, my lunch today, I had to really do a great job of guessing what that number is, and it's just a journey that you'll grow through eventually. So that's my recommendation.
And yeah, you're right. And there are some really great videos on bulk Working Against Gravity, which is the company that I work for that puts out this material, they have some great how-to videos on bulk cooking. And if you really want to get into bulk cooking, you can. For example, Mark and I have a rice cooker. And I know that I'm making 4 servings of rice, and I weigh it and I put it in there, but now it's cooked, and what do I do with it? So what I do is I take all the rice and I weigh it and I divide it by 4, because I know I put 4 servings in there. And I put a sticky note on top of it and it says 1 serving equals 118 grams cooked. And so if he's at home and he needs rice, he portions out 118 grams and he knows that he logs it like that, it's 1 serving. And that's a great way to do it. Same thing with cooking meat. If I know I have 16 ounces of meat and I'm putting it in the pan and I need it for my week and I need it bulk prepped, I take that and when it's all cooked, I put it back on the scale and I get the ratio of cooked to uncooked, 0.85%, right? Or whatever it is. 85% of what was cooked is now the weight. And so what I'll do is I'll put on a sticky note 0.85. And so when I'm portioning out my meat, I'm like, ooh, I really need 6 ounces. I do 6 ounces times 0.85, and that gives me how much I should put on my plate. I know it seems like a lot, and you don't have to go that hard. You really don't. But if you want to go that hard, you can. If you want to portion out 6 and put 6 on your plate, do it. And you might be a little over on protein, but you're also going to be a little bit over on fat. That's where the deficit comes into play, your room for error, right? And that's where you can get a little leeway with your choices. I will also say that thinking about your food in a compartmentalized way, not obsessing about recipes, is really helpful when you're starting. The way that you do that, you think about what is a protein, what can I eat with my protein that makes it delicious, aka fats, what can I eat with my protein that's going to give me gas in the tank, carbs. Not going to put it together, right? For example, last night I had a huge chicken salad with arugula, with romaine, with bell pepper, with onion, and mushroom? Avocado. And a lower fat ranch dressing, because I knew I had chicken and I knew I had a ton of vegetables and I didn't want to get crazy with it. I just wanted to eat and I wanted to feel good. I wanted to feel light. So I chose to do that, and then whenever we go home today, we're going to eat ground beef, and I'm going to say, okay, what am I going to have with my ground beef? Do I want tacos? Do I want sweet potato? Do I want, do I want eggs? How am I going to fill that and build it together? Other questions? Yes, sir.
I just have a statement.
Okay.
And first of all, the reality is find a few recipes that you like.
Yeah.
And if they're plain, that's fine. Eat single ingredient foods, find a few recipes you like, and kind of make that your week. It's really easy to grocery shop and eat the same stuff all the time. Is it a little boring? Yeah, but food's fuel, and get over it. And when we eat the same 4 or 5 or 6 meals, double cook it every night, and then that's tomorrow's lunch. And then once a week we go out to dinner, and we eat, or twice a week even sometimes, we eat whatever we want. That's when I get to eat for fun. That's when I get to eat whatever I want, and I get to eat all the fancy stuff with 20 ingredients in the one salad, or whatever it is. Other than that, it's pretty plain, it's pretty basic, but we like it, and I enjoy it, and it's healthy. And that's your life, and just know that, and it's okay. And also it's hard. This is all hard, but there's a great quote, choose your heart. It's also hard to be unhealthy, eating bad, out of shape, overweight, and so on and so forth. That's a really hard life too. This is a hard life also, eating similar stuff all the time, eating pretty plain, having to cook all your food, having to worry about all this. It gets easier though, but it's still hard. But choose your heart. And it's not easy. But that's okay. That's not the life that we're not trying to live the easy life. We want to live the best life we can.
Well, and the
and just accept that. And know that this is challenging and it's always going to be hard, but it will get easier. But just know that it's hard. It doesn't come easy for me. It doesn't come easy for Sarah. We've been doing it for longer.
Yeah. And the reality of it is that you may need to have been here and to gather all this information, and then you may need to take one baby step towards eating enough protein and only tracking protein. And that might be your reality, and that's then you might just need to add that in. And then start wearing back to carbs. But do it in that order.
Brian and I have been tracking our food for like 2 months now.
Yeah.
I would say I would recommend personally starting with like super easy stuff to track. Just getting used to tracking. So we eat chicken and rice and vegetables for like 2 weeks because it's just the easiest thing to track. We got in the habit of tracking, and now we introduce like all the things that we love to eat, and it's like so easy. I don't even think about it now. So it's just like start it, get the habit going, and then change it up.
Yeah. And you can do a lot with just changing the spices that you use, and you can do a lot with also changing, like I'm really big into like dressings and sauces. Mark will tell you I have like 18 condiments. But you can totally change the flavor from like a ranch to a blue cheese. You can totally change the flavor from using like a spicy Cajun to like an Italian seasoning. Or we do a lot of stir fries. Like we like that, and we measure out the oil, but we like save it for that. Speaking of saving, for kind of what Sean was saying earlier about eating out and doing those things, there's a difference between eating out and being obsessed and crazed about tracking, and eating out and enjoying yourself and setting yourself up for success from earlier in the day. So for example, if Mark and I are going out, we're going out to a dinner, I'm gonna look at the menu ahead of time, and I'm gonna kind of ballpark what I wanna eat. I'm not gonna track it, I'm honestly not, because that takes away from my experience with my food. Okay, so what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna track the day up until, and I'm gonna set myself up to have extra fats and extra carbs, and I'm gonna front load my protein because I never get enough protein at a restaurant ever. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have chicken, I'm gonna have a protein shake, I'm gonna have high fiber if I have carbs, and I'm gonna set myself up to do that by also fasting a little bit more in the day so that I'm eating later, so that I have literally less time. And maybe you drink some coffee, maybe you chug the water, like whatever it is, but set yourself up to have a nice meal and enjoy it, but then also knowing that I did my job to get enough protein and everything is gonna be okay. One thing I didn't touch on that I do want to touch on is the fourth macro, which is alcohol. So alcohol is not of nutritional value, so that's why we don't call it technically a macro, but it does cost calories. Alcohol is technically 7 more calories per gram, and in order to track that, you cannot just scan the Coors Light label, or the seltzer water label, or whatever, or like search, Johnny Walker, and oh, it put up 20 calories, perfect. Let's take a seltzer water for example, 100 calories, right? Whenever you drink alcohol, alcohol cuts the line. It has a Disney Fast Pass, and it cuts the line, and your body prioritizes alcohol before fat loss, so it automatically stops burning fat and takes the alcohol out of your body. Okay? So when you're drinking, you cannot lose fat. Doesn't work. So to track it, everyone's gonna have a drink every once in a while, and that's okay. To track it, you need to count it mostly as fat, because fat is 9 calories per gram, and then you can count some as carbs. There's a really helpful app that the company that I work for, Working Against Gravity, put out. It's free, it's on the App Store. It's called the WAG, W-A-G, Alcohol Calculator. And what you can do is you can put in the alcohol by volume. If you're having an IPA, it's gonna be different than having a Coors Light. You can put in the calories. So if you're having a seltzer water, that's 100 calories. And there's a slider where you can choose, do I want to count it as fat, do I want to count it as carbs? But if you're thinking of 100 calories divided by 4 is what? 25? 25 grams of carbs for a seltzer, or 100 divided by 9, 11, ballpark, 11 grams of fat for the seltzer water. And what that does is it takes away the macros from your count and says that's what it's going to take my body to process. That's how much it costs. So you don't, again, there are layers and layers and layers of how intense you want to be with this. But just like Erica was saying, starting simple and learning how to track, to be aware, to make a routine is gonna lead to the flexibility to be able to live the life you want and feel how you want and look how you want and perform how you want. Yes.
So like take a can of tuna that already has the grams on it. Do you suggest then like also weighing that once you take it out of the can, or you go and buy like what is like there?
That's also how intense do you want to be.
Okay.
Moment. If you're at school and you're eating a can of tuna, I don't want you bringing your food scale to school.
No, I was just like tuna. I'm like, how am I gonna figure out what I eat at work? Like.
Well, so what you could do is you could portion it out at home if you want, or you can scan that label and trust it and try not to eat, I don't know if the water counts in there that much or if it's negligible, but don't get so obsessed that it hinders how you feel about your food. Okay, because there is an extreme situations here, and there are people that get too obsessed with this, and ultimately you have to come back to like, how do I feel about the food that's nourishing my body? How do I feel about it? Do I resent my food? If we're resenting our food, we're in a bad place. Okay? And it's like a personal awareness and a check of like, how do I feel? And is this giving me something or is this taking away something? Good question. Other questions? We have like 2 more minutes. Yeah, totally. And I will be here to help with the carbs. And like I said, this is not my most favorite worksheet. And I can definitely, we can plug it into my macro map and do it real fast if you would like as well. One thing that I will say is that I sent out this PDF to some of you. I realized I didn't attach it, so you'll get 2 emails from me. But I'm also going to send out a list of foods by what they are. And so if you're like, dang, what is fat? What is fat? I need an idea. You're gonna have a list, okay? I'm gonna send that out to you as well. And also scan things, look at things, read food labels, see what you're eating, and then also figure out what kind of quality food do you want to eat. Because there is a difference between the sweet potato and the gummy bear. They both count as carbs, but there is a quality difference of the micronutrients you get in the sweet potato versus the gummy bear. Awesome. Well, I'm going to stop the recording. We are technically done, but I will be here to answer all of your questions for the next 10-ish minutes. And thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.